I'm going to talk to you about Taylor Swift. So, next slide, thanks. Oh, I have the clicker, thanks. Sorry. All right, so when we're conducting surveys, we're often interested in maximizing response rates. One reason for that is to reduce some bias that may occur due to non-response. When we try to understand what is an acceptable response rate, the federal government gives a benchmark of an 80% response rate for surveys conducted by federal agencies. A meta-analysis of online surveys indicated that the response rate was just 44%, and that did include those types of surveys that you all do not like, not just the good ones. Some factors shown to boost survey response rate when we look in the literature are monetary incentives, familiarity with the survey sponsor. So is the agency conducting the survey somebody knows, are familiar with. Older age, older people are more likely to respond to surveys. And another factor is interest in the survey topic. So, for example, parents may be more likely to respond to a survey about parenting. One thing that comes into play with longitudinal panels is that respondents develop experience with prior surveys. And so potentially then interest in prior surveys could drive willingness to respond to future surveys. But at least as far as I can tell, nobody has really looked at that question. So, and then as a lifespan developmental psychologist, one of my interests is aging. And theories of aging suggest that as we age, cognitive effort becomes more costly. And so we're more judicious about how we spend our cognitive resources, and we save them for tasks that we find to be personally meaningful. Therefore, any effect of survey interest that we might see would be expected to increase with age, according to this theory. So with that, the first research question is whether post-survey interest ratings are related to the likelihood of completing the next survey that a respondent is invited to, and if so, whether that varies by age. To answer this question, we conducted a secondary data analysis of the UAS. We actually looked at all surveys from 2014 to 2024, and that was a lot of surveys. So almost 3 million invitations, close to 3 million of which were completed. And then what we did from those completed surveys was looked at a survey that had been completed, and then looked at the interest rating from that, and then whether or not the person completed the next survey that they were invited to. So all the UAS surveys, then at the end of the survey, people are asked to rate how interesting or uninteresting they found the surveys, the questions in the survey. So that was our primary variable that we were interested in. And then just a simple yes or no, did they complete the next survey to which they were invited? To analyze this, we used a mixed effects logistic regression. We did control for some demographic covariates, although the results didn't change when controlling for those versus not. So what's the answer to this first question? Yes, interest in the prior survey did increase the likelihood of completing the next survey by about almost 6%. There was an interaction with age. So what this figure shows is that older age was associated with being more likely to complete the next survey that they were invited to, and that interest seemed to make a little bit more difference at older ages, although we do have extreme amount of power there. So if that doesn't look like much of an interaction, that's what's going on. So now you're probably wondering, especially if you're a Swiftie, what does this have to do with Taylor Swift? So our second research question then is, can we increase survey interest? So on occasion, the UAS includes fun survey questions. So for example, on the 2022 end of year survey, people were asked just about what they thought about a variety of different types of music. And on the 2023 end of year survey, they were asked, how did they feel about Taylor Swift? So again, conducted secondary data analysis. We're using that post-survey interest question again. But to answer the question then, we want to compare surveys with fun questions. So the question about Taylor Swift, the question about music preferences, to surveys that didn't have any fun questions, just your standard survey questions. And so we also wanted to the extent possible, control for time of year effects and that sort of thing that could be driving survey interest. So we compared these fun surveys to two surveys, monthly surveys that were in the field at the same time as the Taylor Swift question survey. So again, using that survey interest rating question. And what the results showed is that, yeah, when there was a question about Taylor Swift, people found the survey to be more interesting than when there was not a question that was considered to be fun. But when there was another type of fun question, so in this case, the question just about musical preferences, it really didn't affect interest. So it seems that any kind of interesting question might be enough to boost, or fun question could be enough to boost interest, or maybe only questions about music. So to conclude then, including fun questions can boost survey interest. Our results showed that greater interest in the prior survey did boost response rate to the next survey to which people were invited. Our findings for age are similar to other longitudinal panels that have found that older people are more likely to respond. And there potentially is a little bit of an effect for interest and with age as well. As we get older, we're a little more selective about how we spend our thinking time. So overall, you might have noticed in that figure with the interaction, the likelihood of completing the next survey conditional on, having finished one was very high. And that rate is similar to what's seen in other national panel re-interview rates. In terms of the future directions, it seems that one thing that's going to be important is to figure out how to motivate young people to complete surveys. And then another analysis that could be done with these data is to look at whether interest in surveys over time is predicting panel attrition, so whether or not people drop out of the panel. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. I especially want to thank the folks at UAS, including Leela Rabinovich and Mike Moldoff, who added those fun questions to the survey, my co-author Ryan Best at WVU and my lab group. Thanks.
Thank you.